Tim O'Toole from Pest Pulse. Welcome to Irish Startup TV.
Thanks, nice to have you.
So Tim, we first met at Google possibly over a year ago, and you alluded to hatching some secret plot. So what's happened since we first met you?
Yeah. I think I let you in on a little secret back when we first met. So I left Google just about a year ago, about 13 months ago or so, to start my own company with a few colleagues. We've started a company called Pest Pulse, and what we're a smart tech pest control company. So we're bringing IoT and software innovation to a really old-fashioned industry that is pest control, and we're trying to get rid of the wasted manual labor and improve the overall service for no extra cost for our customers.
Wow, nice. So I think IoT has very much become a buzzword in the last couple of years. So I'm very refreshed, or rather, I find it very refreshing to hear a very practical example of this technology in use. So can you give us maybe a little bit more sense, a sense of the product and what exactly it does?
Sure, yeah. So our first product is directed towards rodent control. So if you're a food business or a business that's serving the public in any way, there's regulation that stipulates that you need to have proactive pest control in place for rodents. What happens today, though, is that pest control companies use poisons in little boxes, and they're placed in coffee shops, in every Starbucks, every Nero, every Costa, and they're inspected once a month by a pest control technician. 95% of the time, there's no problems at all. What we've done is we've built a smart device that sits inside those boxes. It is a little switch device that monitors an old-fashioned mousetrap, and we then send an instant alert to the client and to us and to our technicians as soon as anything happens, and we deploy a technician the moment an issue occurs on site. So it addresses the issues that are in the industry. Really, where we see IoT, or why we're looking at the IoT solution today, is that with hardware costs dropping and connectivity costs dropping so much, it starts to become viable for these types of applications in old-fashioned industries. Pest control is not a high-margin business, and so getting in and replacing high-cost labor with low-cost smart tech means that we can then start to revolutionize it with IoT, and it's only now that that's possible.
That's really incredible, because it makes so much sense as well that if you send an inspector in at the beginning of the month and there's no issue, but then an issue occurs on the second day in the month, it's a real hit and miss. And then from a practical point of view, how does it work? Is there a little a chip that connects to Wi-Fi, or how does your control center monitor these traps?
Yeah, so we're using low-powered wide area networks. So in Europe, originally we've launched on Sigfox network. So
okay.
Aware of the LPWAN networks. VT networks in Ireland run the Sigfox network.
You actually just broke up there a bit, so I might ask you that again. So you might if you just explain it again.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So we're using low-powered wide area networks, and in Europe we're using the provider of Sigfox, which is run by VT networks here in Ireland. And what that network does, it helps us run IoT devices, one in its nature with extreme low power and across a wide network. So therefore, we don't have to use Wi-Fi on site. We don't have to use expensive cellular, and we can build a device that's low cost to run year on year, and is perfect for our application where we'd have any restaurants that could have somewhere between 4 and 6 bay points, up to a data center that can have 250, 300 data points. And so it helps us kind of scale a lot without having to put in expensive infrastructure to support our devices.
Wow, it's incredible. So it sounds like it's a very good time to do this type of business in terms of the level of technology that we have access to these days.
Yeah. So there's kind of that. We feel the time is now. We may be slightly too early in some aspects. So, for instance, in Europe, the LPWAN rollout is much more advanced than it is in the United States. So we spent the summer in the United States looking at solutions out there. Sigfox, for instance, do not have the same type of coverage and the same type of reach. We'll be looking at something alternative in the United States, which would be more LTE Cat-M, or the next winner over there. NB-IoT again has launched on both continents, but hasn't really got penetration on either. So for us, it's better to be slightly too early and be in the race. But it's definitely much further along than it has been about 5 or 6 years ago when people began to start looking at innovation in this space.
Rodent management is a historic issue, but you're bringing in this new technology. Perhaps for anyone who's watching who's less technically proficient, can you give a sense in layman's terms how the technology is working in Europe and what kind of challenges there are to developing and deploying similar technology in the US.
Yeah, so in essence, in terms of our devices, our smart devices, it's the very same. And so we use traditional traps that are on the market today. So what you would think is a traditional mousetrap, an industrial version of that. But we don't change that. We have a sensor that sits atop of that, and it detects three things. Is the trap armed and ready to go? Has it triggered and caught something, or has it triggered and not caught anything at all? And that trap checks in every day to us and tells us, I'm okay, I haven't caught anything, this premises is A-okay. And so we build all that ourselves in terms of that sensor, and that's where our patent is pending on. We then have that through our own controller, which is a 15-year battery life. It runs on in Europe on the LPWAN Sigfox network, and that talks directly through Sigfox into a callback into the back end and then into our software. Our software then does the magic. It starts taking our messages and our information and turns those into alerts for our customers and tasks for our technicians. And so it's similar to how you would deploy an Uber car for on demand. We have on-demand pest control, but that demand is driven by these smart devices that tell that there's a problem in place. In the United States, the hardware is exactly the same. The issue being it's on the connectivity side. So instead of us using the Sigfox network in the United States, we'll be using AT&T or Verizon or an equivalent in the United States. That's about it. What's beneficial to Sigfox is that it's lower cost. In Europe, we'd have to pay a higher cost in this.
So in terms then of the technology, the mousetrap itself, that's something that you can purchase already. On the engineering side, how much engineering has had to go into the sensor? You mentioned that you've got a patent pending.
Yeah. So a lot actually. So that's where we've spent the first 9 months or so of the business. So there's a kind of a saying out there about building a better mousetrap. And we like to say we haven't built a better mousetrap. We've made the mousetrap smarter. And we've done that through our own in-house engineering. So one of my co-founders, Wasim, he's our chief hardware architect. He's ex-Firmwave. He was the chief hardware architect at Firmwave.
Okay. With Fintan.
Pardon?
With Vincent McGovern.
With Vincent McGovern, exactly. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So Wasim, 5 years. Yeah, he's our rock star on the hardware side. And what we've invested time in order to build a device that's simple to use, reliable, so it's we don't get false positives, and it's low cost. And that's the real clincher in this. There are a few companies in the industry that have attempted to build smart technology, but it's for the 1%. So Rentokil have built a device, but it's £1,300 per. We have managed to build a trap that's economic enough that we can replace the manual labor today that's checking poisons with smart tech and still deliver a cost savings to our customers. So our first launch customer in Ireland was Five Guys, and we delivered a smart solution for less than they're paying today for their manual pest control services. And all of that is due to the time invested in building the hardware in such a way. There's been a lot of lead time and lead investment to do that, but then the scalability is where we can really eat back those investment costs because we can scale a lot of devices very quickly.
And so far, where has the investment come from? Have you been financing it yourselves, or have you raised any equity to date?
So originally, myself and Brian, our CEO, our co-founder, so we did a small amount that we funded ourselves, but then we had a good round of strategic angels that came in and helped us fund our development cycle. And so, and in addition to that, we spent some time in the United States, and we've got some strategic partnerships in the works. And right now, we're going to raise our seed round. So we're halfway there on our seed round, which is very, very good. And all of that money is going towards us building our commercial teams. So we've launched in Ireland. We're in Dublin and Belfast and Cork. And we're going to London in January, and we've got customers lined up for our launches in London. And for us to put people on the ground and grow the teams, that's what we're raising our seed round for.
Amazing. And what kind of challenges or opportunities have you faced raising money so far? Like you've mentioned different jurisdictions, so have you seen a different environment in different areas, and how has that impacted your strategy?
Yeah. So we've been spread across 2 continents for the last 6 months, and we've had a lot of questions about where do we want to locate ourselves? Do we want to be in a United States first business or a Europe first business? And you'll know, or you may know, in the VC community in the United States, it's largely driven on they like to invest in companies that are incorporated in the United States rather than are incorporated.
It's easier, right? Because otherwise you have to learn a whole new tax and accounting package.
Exactly. So when we first started this, so we started it around October of last year, and actually our first act was to put an application into Y Combinator, who flew us out, and we went and we met with Y Combinator, and we pitched those guys, and we met a series of VCs there, one of which is one of the best hardware VCs in the world, and they wanted to invest straight away, but they wanted us to relocate to San Francisco or Boston, and that was one of the biggest decisions we made very early on. We see the opportunity for this business in Europe first for several reasons. The industry is much more advanced here, which is unusual, but pest control is much more advanced because the regulations are much more on the side of no more poisons going towards non-toxics, which is where we play. In addition to that, it's a market that is in need of disruption within Europe, more so in the United States. Pest control in the United States is more residentially focused. In Europe, it's more commercially focused. So where the money is in the United States, the opportunity is in Europe. And so for us, one of the things that we've been playing with is finding European investors that want to kind of disrupt an industry that they're not so familiar with, and B, that is not the most glamorous industry in the world, shall we say. We're not like e-scooters, which is something that we wish we were, but we're not. That's been very good. But we mentioned earlier, from working at Google, I've become part of the ex-Google network, known as the Zooglar network.
Oh wow!
And so
that's global then?
That's global now, yeah, and it's a great network actually. It's been hugely beneficial for us, and we pitched at their Zooglar demo day in London in July, I believe. We came back from the United States to pitch at it, and we got a lot of leads from Europe there. We started building that European VC lead
funnel.
And so, yeah. and so we're in the midst of that at the moment, and we're having some very good conversations with the guys.
You articulate yourself incredibly clearly, your knowledge of the problem and the knowledge of the solution. Tell us a little bit more about your educational background and the type of role that you had at Google.
Yeah, so I suppose to give you some context, even a little bit earlier on from that, and why pest control. I grew up in a pest control business, so my family owned the number 3 provider in Ireland, or a company called PestGuard. They're the largest independent. They've multi-billion-dollar players above and below, and my father's been running that business for almost 40 years now. So I grew up in that business and in a business environment to a very large degree. But I didn't work in the business throughout my career, so I've worked primarily in tech. So in terms of education, I went to Trinity and I did economics of business, and then from there I've worked in startups, and then I worked at eBay as a strategist, and in Google I worked with Google Maps, and I worked within the strategy analytics team. So I led strategy and analytics for the Google Maps operations teams, which is a global team working on machine learning as it applies to the Google data set. So if you're ever looking for a phone number or an address or a website for a restaurant, the likelihood is my team worked on that. And we used to work on projects to try and scale Google Maps from 1 million edits a day to 100 million edits a day. And how does Google start to build that out? And so one of the things that we focused on in those teams were efficiencies. How do we take something that is largely efficient today, but then 10x it? And I was always returning to that kind of that mindset to an old-fashioned industry that is pest control. My family all work in that industry, and we see it every day. And we see the fact that 95% of the time when a technician visits, it's wasted and it's inefficient. And so that's why we were always trying to tackle that problem. And when I got together with my co-founders, Brian, John, and Wasim, we started looking at the problem and we started looking at the solution and how attainable it was through what we've designed. And so I think that's where I managed to take what I learned at Google and applied it into what we're doing today.
That's incredible. So you had absolutely deep and rich domain expertise of the problem. And then you had, I guess, a completely different solution to tackling the same problem that has been, as we've already discussed, age old. Wow, I'm really inspired by that. That's really exciting. So what's next on your roadmap? What are your key goals in the next couple of months? People are watching this video. How can they get in touch if they want to invest, or if they want to maybe hire your services or purchase your product?
Yeah. So we launched on October 1st with our initial clients in Ireland, and we're growing quickly. And so in terms of what we're doing between now and the end of the year, is that we've delivered on our pre-order clients. I was just in another store today, so Five Guys have another store open in Belfast, and they're now Pest Plus ready as of this morning. They open on Monday, and we have a series of installs that are carrying on throughout the month. I spend a lot of time in London at the moment, so we're growing our business in London. We're working with a few large chains in the United Kingdom at the moment around our launch plan there. And that will see us supersize throughout 2019, where really the UK is going to be our home markets and some of the large food and restaurant sector brands over in the United Kingdom. In terms of the business itself, we are raising our seed round. We have that 50% committed, and it's just about us kind of pushing that over the line over the next few weeks and months. And definitely that's a mixture of some strategic angels, some strategic partners as well that we've worked with, big corporate partners. And then beyond that, we are talking to some VCs, ideally to get them involved early on. So therefore, when we do raise our Series A, etc., that we have people who can follow on. So it's kind of getting that balancing act. We're most excited about the future roadmap on devices. So as I said, we've built a smart device for rodent control, and that's because rodents are 65% of the market in Europe. That starts the scaling through flying insects, and we've got smart devices coming on board flying insects and then crawling insects, which really opens up the United States market for us. It starts getting us beyond the commercial applications and into the residential applications, and that's what we're going to see happen throughout 2019 and into 2020, where we'll start to bring more innovations into the industry and then grow geographically across both Europe and then eventually into the United States.
Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed this chat. Thanks so much, Tim. It's a fascinating area that you've taken on, and I'm just blown away by your passion and enthusiasm, and the engagement so far with the problem and solution has been wow. I'm to be honest with you, my head is a little blown here because I talk to a lot of startups and I meet an awful lot of startups, but I can see that you've really hit the ground running here as a function of clearly arriving at the problem very, very prepared. And all I can say is I wish you the very best of luck with the project as it goes forward.
Thanks, Richard. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time.